Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Fadlan Fautyaz. I'm from group 16. Cintami and I, we're gonna discuss about post-feminism blurring gender differences as the topic from critical theory. Okay, so uh, starting from main concerns for feminism that made him one of the leading post-feminist theorists today, focusing on the question, what is the meaning of the word feminist? In the feminist literary criticism, over the past decades, feminists have used the terms main points some moist writings. However, is to urge that only a clear understanding of the differences between them can show what the crucial political and theoretical issues of contemporary feminist criticism really are. Initially, she suggests that we distinguish between feminism as a political position, femaleness as a matter of biology, and femininity as a set of culturally defined characteristics. Okay, and number one, what is the problem of feminism today? In 28 and 28, 2008, brilliant literary critics still work on women writers. The intellectual level of the books in the field is high, and the achievements in the field are recognized in the academy in general. In 2006, for example, Paula Bexheider's in 2005 big book about 18th century British woman poet won the MLA's Modern Language Association's James Russell Lowell Prize since the 1980s. Moreover, a whole new generation of women writers gave emerged, and many literary critics feel it an urgent task to create an intellectual space for the discussion of their struggle to be taken seriously in featuring the woman author in contemporary fiction. Mary Ingleton, in 2005, stresses that feminism always has been concerned with women's struggle for authorship and authority. She notes that the figure of the artist or writer has remained deeply important in writing by women in English since 1960s. Today, uh, then theory and practice appear to be just as out since as they were by the end of the 1980s. The result is a kind of intellectual schizophrenia, in which one half of the brain continues to read women's writers, while the other continues to think that the author is dead and the very word woman is theoretically dodgy. Not wonder then that so many books and essays, women writers begin a series of apologies. Usually, the reader begins by assuring us that she really doesn't have anything against Bartels or Foucault, or the or that she isn't really writing about real living authors, but only about the figure of the author in the literary text. um, or that when she writes Roman, she really means woman, and so on. Such formulations are symptoms of a theoretical malaise. Instead of supporting women interested in investigating women's writing, our current theories appear to make them feel guilty, or even worse, scare them away from working on women and writing altogether. Okay, number two, why do women's writing become problematic? At that time, women's writing was often defined as writing by women about women, and for women, the concept of écriture féminine, championed by French by writer and psychoanalysts such as Hélène Cixous and Luce Irigaray, was parallel development more intimately bound to psychoanalytical ideas of femininity. Écriture féminine promoted writing marked by femininity, which in general meant writing by a woman, although it was acknowledged that femininity could occasionally be found in men texts too. For many women writers, this wave of interest in women's writing was pure liberation. The previous decades had been more than usually rich in macho definitions of woman. In the introduction, she wrote 1971 to her 1962 novel The Golden Notebook. Doris Lessing reminded her readers that 10 or even 5 years ago, novels and plays were being plentifully written by men, furiously critical of women, particularly from the state, but also in the country portrayed as bullies and betrayers, but particularly as underminers and sappers. But these attitudes in male writers were taken for granted, accepted as sound philosophical basis as quite normal, certainly not as woman-hating, aggressive, or neurotic. Lessing 1999 set against such a background. The passionate interest in women's writing that exploded in the 1970s appears entirely justified. Finally, women writers were going to fully express then our passion and desires in writing. Finally, women readers would find their own passion reflected in books written with women in mind. Reasons. Number A. Point A. Clash with post-structuralist post-structuralist theories. About authors and writing. The first reason why feminist theories fell silent on the question of women and writing the rise of post-structuralism in the late 1970s. Ronald Barthes, 1966, essay The Death of the Author was beginning to be quoted everywhere. Equally influential was Jacques Derrida's 1988 systematic attempt to show that literary texts are just texts, that is to say, system of signs where meaning signification arises through the play of those signifiers, without any reference to a speaking subject. And Michael Foucault's 1966 radical anti-humanism. In the 1980s, such theories started to conflict seriously with the interest in women's writing feminists who want to work on women writers at the same time as they were convinced that Barthes, Derrida, and Foucault were right, began to wonder whether it really mattered whether the author was a woman. In the United States, the tensions involved in this position were about the status of the female author. This debate has two acts, the first consisting in two essays from 1980s, the second in an exchange of letters 1996 and 1989. Read together, the two exchanges sharply register the evolution of the theoretical climate in the intervening decade. In 1981, the question of what sex of gender of the author really has to do with literary mind Unanswered, Camus did not even want to speak about authors, while Miller claimed the feminists are, the very least, have a political duty to be interested in women writers. If there were good theoretical arguments to be found against Camus' principled rejection of the metaphysics of writing, however, they were not expressed in Miller's essays. In 1984, Gayatri Spivak tried to untie the knot by launching the concept of strategic essentialism, which, as discussed in terms of privileged practice over theory, this corresponds to Nancy Miller's position. When the theory doesn't work in practice, we should give priority to political practice. Yet such declaration don't do any theoretical work. The theoretical problem that gave rise to them in the first place remains unresolved. And B. Judith Butler gender trouble, neither woman nor literature. The second reason why the question of woman and writing was left behind by theorists was the influence of Judith Butler only 1 year after Camus and Miller complete their somewhat downcast, almost post-feminist dialogue. Butler, 1990s, published her hugely influential Gender Trouble challenging in the very category of woman. Butler argued that we ought to speak about gender instead. Gender, moreover, was a performative effect of heterosexist and heteronormative power structures. By claiming that gender is performative, Butler basically meant to say we create our gender by doing gendered things. Our behavior either cements or undermines social gender norms. This view has a lot in common with Simone de Beauvoir's. One is not born a woman, but rather one becomes one. Since Beauvoir too thinks that human beings made themselves what they are through their action in the world, both Butler and Beauvoir, moreover, are anti-essentialists, who in very different ways believe that gender is produced in society and that it therefore also can be changed in society. Thank you. That's all for me. And it will continue by Cintami.
Hello, I am Cintami Fithri. I will continue the topic for discussion about post-feminism, blurring gender differences. And the next topic is the concept of I am not a woman writer. That divided into two concepts. The first one from Beauvoir's dilemma. At the beginning of the second sex, Beauvoir show that in the sexist society, man is the universal and woman is the particular. He is the one and she is other. This Beauvoir's definition of the sexism, and it underpins everything she writes in the second sex. For Beauvoir, the philosophical essence of sexism means to forcefully suppress gender subjectivity. For the real example, in February 2007, Drew Faust was named the first female president of Harvard in history. In the media, the emphasis of her gender was so intense that it was easy to get the impression that this was the major reason why she get the job. She said, I hope that my own appointment can be a symbol of an opening of opportunities that would have been inconceivable even a generation ago. And she also added, I am not the woman president of Harvard, I am the president of Harvard. She acknowledged that she is a woman, then emphasized that the importance of that fact before stressing that she didn't want to be perceived as the woman president of Harvard. Why she didn't want to be perceived as the woman president of Harvard? Firstly, when a woman finds that she has to say, I am not a woman writer, or I am not the woman president of Harvard, it is never a general claim, but it is always a response to a provocation, usually to someone who has tried to use her sex or gender against her. If we imagine a situation in which a man might say, I am a writer, not a male writer, and it could be seen as a response to some kind of provocation from a feminist. For writers who are women, it can be incredibly frustrating to be told that they have to write as a woman or like a woman, for what it is supposed to mean, that she has to conform to some stereotypical norm for feminine writing. This is what Sarraut thinks, and why she gets rather aggressive at the very thought of increasing feminism. On the other hand, it can be just as frustrating for a woman writer to feel that she has to write as a generic human being, since it opens up an alienating split between her gender and her humanity. The second one is the concept of Virginia Woolf and a room of one's own. For Woolf, the writer's task is to attain to reality with the deepest core of her being. Erin Greer showed in her 2007 honors thesis that is neither sex or gender, the wedge-shaped core of darkness that defines Mrs. Ramsay when she sits knitting in the window into the lighthouse is imagined to be beyond all identities, beyond personality, to be impersonal and universal. For Woolf, therefore, the writer must attain to reality without troubling herself with identity claims. The whole of the mind must lie wide open if we are to get the sense that the writer is communicating his experience with perfect fullness. There must be freedom and there must be peace. Woolf said, women must write, but when they write, they must not think of themselves as women. They must simply be themselves, and above all, they must think of things in themselves, that is to say, attend to reality, so as to find it and collect it and communicate it to the rest of us. Stridence, sex consciousness prevents good writing because it prevents the writer from seeing things in themselves. No age can ever have been as stridently sex conscious as our own. The effect is to make men as well as women sex conscious, to the detriment of good writing. Women must write, but they can write if they are not allowed to forget their sex. No wonder that critics have sometimes found Woolf's views on women and writing incoherent. But if we bring Beaufort's analysis to bear on Woolf's idea, it is not hard to see that Woolf is struggling to avoid choosing one side or the other when faced with Beaufort's dilemma. And the last topic is, why is literature still important for women to write? Why should women write? Why should we care about literature? Literature is the archive of culture. We turn to literature to discover what makes other human beings suffer and love, hate and love, how people in other countries live, and how men and women experience and live in other historical periods. To turn women into second-rate citizens in the realm of literature is to say that a woman's experience of existence and of the world are less important than men's. Novel, or a poem, or a play, or a theoretical essay for that matter, is an attempt to make others see something that really matters to the writer. To write is to risk rejection and misunderstanding. According to Fithri, to create a work of art is to give the world a gift nobody has asked for. But if we don't dare to be generous, if we don't dare to share with others what we see, the world will be the poorer for it. And sometimes someone actually does get it. When a reader feels that a book really speaks to her, she feels less lonely in the world. Literature holds out the hope of overcoming skepticism and isolation. Okay, my friends, maybe that's enough from us. Hopefully, this material is conveyed well and can be understood. And thank you for watching and listening. And we apologize for any shortcomings. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.